Hello, readers, writers, and book friends alike. Welcome to the eReads podcast. I'm your host, Liz, and you found my podcast where I discuss books and creativity and everything in between. This month, I'm giving all my thoughts and feelings and emotions about NaNoWriMo. For those of you who have never heard it before, it's an acronym for National Novel Writing Month. And the month of November is all about getting together and writing that project that you've been wanting to do. And so after this ad, we're going to jump into my thoughts and talk to a few of my friends. Shout out to this episode's sponsor, Zencastr, my number one podcast tool. They provide a crystal clear sound and gorgeous HD video. I love that I can record separate audio and video tracks for me and my guest. Plus, there is a secure cloud backup, so I never lose the interview. It is easy to use and there is nothing to download. My guest just clicks the link and we start recording. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and enter the promo code eReadsPod to get 30% off on your first 3 months off of the pro pricing. Again, that's zencastr.com/pricing and enter the promo code eReadsPod and you'll get 30% off your first 3 months. Now let's jump right into the episode. All right, y'all. So I'm going to go over NaNoWriMo today. So I'm going to let you know what that is. I'm going to talk about my experience as well as some tips and takeaways from this whole experience. And then at the end, you'll get hopefully some more tips and tidbits from a few of my friends and learn about their experience. So let's jump in. So if you haven't heard of NaNoWriMo, it's an acronym that stands for National Novel Writing Month. And it's something that I just heard about last year, and I find it very fun. It's very exciting. The goal is to get 50,000 words. So basically you end up with a full project or body of work by the end of November. And it was designed, for folks that, you've been wanting to write a book. Maybe you're scared, maybe you're nervous. And because of the nature of it, you just have to write, right? Like there's no time to think, there's no time to judge, you're just getting it out there. So that's part of, the draw of Nano, as well as the community, right? There's a huge community around writing and this whole process. They encourage you to find groups and things like that to communicate about your project. They have a lot of different discussions and opportunities to learn about writing through the NaNoWriMo website. And also fun fact, so NaNoWriMo doesn't just stop in November. There's actually a couple different things that they do. There's one in the spring, I think it's around April. And there's one during the summer that's called Camp NaNoWriMo. So it's really evolved from this 1 month to these opportunities throughout the year to just come and have community, and write. Again, the goal is 50,000 words, but a lot of people make it into their own thing, right? They will create mini goals or different expectations. And that really is wonderful because it helps you make this whole process manageable, as well as making it a game and taking out the fear of writing, right? You're just here to show up and get as far as you can. There's also a little extension before that, right? So I believe something new that they started is in October, where it's called Preptober, where you're prepping your NaNoWriMo project. So for instance, if you are a plotter or someone who likes planning, you might use all of October to really plan, research, get your novel ready. But the draw or the idea of Nano is you don't start writing the actual project until November. Now, on the flip side, some people don't do that. They just show up in November and just start writing. They have no idea what they're working on. And that's cool too. Again, it's really about that community and that community building, which I thoroughly love and enjoy. So now that you know about what it is, I'll tell you about my experience. So I started last year. It was my first year. And you'll hear from a couple of the ladies that I have written with last year. And we really bonded over this experience, right? So we decided to support each other and just see what happens. And it was a very fantastic experience. So last year, I used the month to finish a novel that I was working on that is currently available on Kindle Vella called Prophecy Trilogy Portal. And I was able to, get to the end of it, which I thought was the end. And then you find out as you're editing and things that there's a little bit more to the story. But I got to what I thought was complete at that time. And it was very rewarding. I was able to earn a lot of different deals on products and things that helped me throughout this current year. And it was a really fun and stressful experience, right? So theoretically, you have to complete around, we'll say 16,000 words daily to get to that 50,000, which is really hard, especially for me, and especially last year when I'm juggling working and writing and all these different things. But again, it was fun nonetheless because we had community. We had daily writing prompts that we would give each other every day. And it was really just, again, fun to be able to go through that experience. This year, I really wanted to get to know my writing style, right? Really get to, one, I want those deals and those coupons. So I'm working really hard to get there. But I really wanted to know about my writing style. And I think, especially over this last week, I've really gotten to do that. So I don't, full transparency, think I'm getting to 50,000. My new goal is 40, and that might be a little bit of a stretch. I'm at about 24,000 words currently with 9 days remaining. So we're going to see. We're going to push and see if we can stretch ourselves. But I'm also not going to put that pressure on myself of, hey, if we don't get to 50, we don't get to 50. But I really want those bragging rights. But anyway, this year I really learned that I enjoy just the process of just going, right? Just showing up on an empty page and writing. And I bounced between 3 different projects in case I got stuck or anything like that. So my overall goal is not necessarily to have one finished project, but to at least be in the middle of 1 or 2 projects. So right now, one is kind of stagnant at the beginning. One is, actually, I will say, one is about stagnant at the beginning. One is, I feel like I'm trekking through, and it seems like this one I might have the most content for. And I'm doing a collab project because Nano had a really interesting software called First Draft, which allows you to co-write. And that has been really fun and interesting in navigating that space and that world of how to co-write. And so I might have a different episode dedicated just to that. So that has been really interesting, and being able to use some of the different software. So again, that's another aside as to why Nano is great. You get exposed to all these different softwares. But anyway, getting back to the current project and where it is, it's been really interesting to learn about what inspires me, but as well as, when it comes to creating the project. So I had a little bit of struggle one week because I just was feeling like I wasn't writing right? Air quotes here. I was feeling like a lot of people, when they talk about NaNoWriMo, they talk about the plotting or the planning. And I was trying so hard to do that, right? I tried to do Preptober and really have an idea of what I was doing. And it just seemed like that was boxing me in. And a friend had sent me this NaNoWriMo intuitive writing prep guide. And that really unlocked something for me over the past week. And I think I'll come back and do a different episode about intuitive writing because that really spoke to me. Because when I write, I feel like I just show up, and the language that it used in the guide was, right, intuitive writers tend to, get their information downloaded from their environment or, their intuition, and then they just write. And that was really helpful because sometimes I have no idea where my stories are going or what I want, but I just feel like this is what the character wants, or I feel that this is the way the story is going. And that really helped me through this process because again, with NaNoWriMo, you have to just write, right? You just have to get it out. That's how you get to the finish line. And I was starting to say, okay, is this the structure? Is this the structure? Is this? And all these questions were getting in the way of me just being able to create. And so my takeaway was just show up and write the thing, right? Just kind of have these mindful writing moments. And I would urge you, like, if you're doing NaNoWriMo or this is something that you're trying, to use it as a moment to really just brain dump, right? You can always go back after when you don't have this time crunch to edit and process and re-outline and do all those things. But really just getting that thought out, right? Getting the pressure of like, is this right out the way, and just getting the words on the page, because really that's the goal. The goal is to get the words on the page. And you might get something that you use and you publish. You might just get something that you keep just for yourself, and that's fine. And so that's another tip I'm going to leave you with is, right, your NaNoWriMo doesn't have to be like someone else's NaNoWriMo. You don't have to leave with a full finished project. You can leave with mini stories. You can leave with a reader magnet. You can just leave with something that is just, your own musing that you enjoy for yourself, but really just thinking about what is it that you want outside of that 50,000, right? You might say like, you know what? I know I can't reach that. I'm going to strive for 10, and that's 10,000 more than you started with. Right? You might just say, I just want to create writing habits. And like this month allows you to do that because every day you're showing up and you're writing. So really thinking about what is it that you want from this experience and allowing that to develop. Some other tips I have is if you really utilize your strengths. If you are a person that plots, really taking that time to plot, and that will help you speed up this process. It will help you feel like you have direction. If you're someone that pantses, really thinking about what is the environment that you need to create that space so that you can just pants and show up. So whether that's knowing that you need a full cup of coffee or tea, writing early in the mornings, but really having that. And then my other concrete tip is having a writing group, right? You can definitely get into the weeds with NaNoWriMo. It can be really hard or really easy to fall behind in between all the different holidays and obligations. So being able to have people to talk to not feel isolated or alone, because we're all going through or having similar emotions. So being able to have someone to talk to is very important. And there's so many different tools for that, whether there's so many writing groups and clubs on Clubhouse or on the NaNoWriMo website, or even on TikTok. The writing community is so accepting and so comforting. And so really using this, even if it's just a time to build a sense of writing community. So that was just a little brief overview of NaNoWriMo, my experience, and my tips and takeaway. I would love to hear from y'all watching or listening to this, what your experience has been, and if this is something that you would try. But I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to open this up for a couple of my friends that I enjoy writing with and just being with. One is Judy Ann. You might, if she can talk, because I know she's on the road, you might have heard her voice during the last episode we had where we talked about Kindle Vella. And we also have Vet, who was also on the episode where we talked about Kindle Vella. So welcome, Judy Ann and Vet. How are you? Oh, we hear you now. Yay.
Can you hear me?
We can. How are you?
Oh, yay. Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing lovely.
Wonderful. Great to see you and Vet.
Yeah. So Judy Ann, this is also your second year doing NaNoWriMo. What do you think about this process?
I love it. I love everything that you've said. Excuse me. This year has been different. Last year was just a revelation for me. I've never written a book before, and I had thought about it, but to be in the community of friends who are also doing the same thing was just created so much great energy, and I got into it so well. I would also put, just seeing last year compared to this year for me personally, is that last year I had a lot more emotional and headspace, um, where I could put, where I could focus on my novel during NaNoWriMo. And this year I've had a lot of um, energetic intrusion, I guess, where just a lot is going on that has distracted me and pulled me away. So that's been interesting to see, because I haven't really been successful in cutting through that yet, but still hoping to, and still working on it. So thank you for doing this podcast, Liz.
Thank you for your input. And I think that's a really good point. You talked about like just the emotional headspace and like sometimes just the physical time, right? And I think, sometimes with NaNoWriMo, you'll see people kind of like fizzle out or sometimes even lose their interest for writing, or it just becomes a very big stressor. And I think it's important to take into account, like, just because this is November and this is National Novel Writing Month, if you don't have the time and the headspace, don't force it, right? This is supposed to be really fun. And so even if you're just showing up for the sense of community, let it be that. If it's just I'm going to show up and see if I get to writing, maybe I get a sentence, maybe I just get my laundry done. But like just really being able to get to know your space and understanding what you have the mental health headspace for. So I love that. So thanks. And what about you, Vet? This is your second year as well. And I think we met during NaNoWriMo last year.
Yes, we did. I had joined a little before NaNoWriMo. So that was my first time doing it, and I found it very interesting. I was a little hesitant at first, but I was glad I jumped in there, and I did make my 50,000 words. So again, this year, I am really trying to do the 50,000. Also enjoy having the community experience. And being that I am semi retired, it has enabled me to be able to work basically throughout the day for hours at a time. Where I can get it done. Sometime I may be up at 12 a.m., so I'll get to writing there for a few hours and then get back to it. My goal is to try to do the 67 per day. Sometime I make it, sometime I don't. If I don't, I'll just make it up on that next day. With the holiday coming up, I know it probably set me back a little bit. So that Saturday and Sunday, I'll be really going in it a little more on it. Now, one thing I did do was before I started the writing, I did inform my family and my friends that I would be doing this. That way, if I'm not available to them, and they also know that this is something, a challenge for me that I'm doing for myself, so that they'll know, okay, I can't do this, or I have to get back to my writing, they'll be more understanding about it.
I love that, right? Like letting those outside of your writing community, like those that you're physically in community with, know what you're going through. I love that one from the practicalness of, yeah, like sometimes you're not going to be able to go or be out or be available or answer your phone. Like sometimes like you really just have to be with you and your writing source, whether that's pen and paper, whether that's a computer, and just write. Sometimes you're just like needing to devote hours to that so you can get to that 50,000. And so just letting them know like, hey, I'm still here, still connected with you, but I need to get this done. And that also gives you that physical community of like, they're going to check on you. Like these are your cheerleaders and they want you to reach your goal. And they're also going to be able to comfort you if you don't, or if you're just too tired or you're stuck. And so I love that tidbit about letting your family know. Also, for those in Clubhouse, I have pinned to the link of our stories, many of which were started and or finished during NaNoWriMo. And so if you're interested in either Elios, which is a story that Judy Ann started, in NaNoWriMo, that's linked to there, as well as linked to Vet's story. And she has two, one that she completed during NaNoWriMo, and one is what the other one isn't like a new story. It's a story you went back to. Is that right, Vet? Your second story?
Yes, What About Me is that the story I started with NaNoWriMo last year. And so I'm adding on to it again this year. But the basic story I'm working on now is a new book, When Two Becomes One. But my other story on can develop with that is the What Happened. And that was a brand new story.
And I'm glad you brought up When Two Become One, because that is not a fiction, fantasy type story. That is a self-help, nonfiction book. And so for those who are just like, oh, I don't do creative stories, this can be a space where you work on something else that is nonfiction. So, you know, having worked on two stories, one that is, made up and one that is, real, how has that process been? Are you still enjoying NaNoWriMo this year?
Yes, and I think working on the story I'm doing now, which is the self help, when two becomes one, that is giving me a lot of pleasure because that's something I really know about, and I would like to see couples have a great marriage. So that's something I'm really working on, and that's why it's my challenge to make sure I get my 50,000 words in. And on this one, I'm not constantly going back trying to edit as I go. Um, this time I'm just writing everything I can think of. And then once NaNoWriMo is over, I'll probably take a week break and then get back to it. And that's when I'll be doing my editing on it.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned not trying to edit and write at the same time. And so I'm curious for both, Judy and Vet, has that been a struggle too, whether it was like this year or last year? Like, do you feel that you were editing and writing? Was it easy to separate the two? Judy, and it can, you share a little light on that because you do copy editing kind of like as an occupation. So is it hard to separate that brain, turn that brain off?
Um, a little bit, and but I enjoy that. I enjoy, like, sometimes I will stop. I'll want the perfect name for a place that I'm making up. That I'm fiction that I'm putting in my story, or a person, and I want it something with meaning. It may be, from a different culture or a different country. And so I kind of have fun looking that up for a minute, and that, I guess, that also speaks to taking little breaks. And that, I know you can speak about that now. You've been talking about taking breaks by going back and forth between your works. And I kind of did that last year by just taking a break from one storyline and going to, a totally different, wherever my mind took me, to another storyline that could be woven into the main story, or doing a little of the research on, what a name should be, what would that meaning behind the name be that would characterize that character or that place. Um, so I don't feel like I had a lot of trouble necessarily editing myself, but it actually was part of the process that kind of helped sustain my writing. If that does that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds like you used that as a skill to propel you forward versus stopping you.
Yeah, I think that would be a good way to put it. Yes.
Very cool. And I like that because really, you're right, we talk a lot about the writing and prepping the writing, but prepping the writer is also, I think, a part of that Preptober that should be discussed, right? Really think about what are your strengths that are going to help you through, whether that's editing, which for me can sometimes be an Achilles heel because I'll just overthink something, or if that's just really taking those breaks, bouncing between different things, but really thinking about what are the strengths and tools that you have as a writer that's going to help you through that. I like that. Any other reflections, comments, concerns, Vet or Judy Ann?
I think one thing is important while you're doing this writing too is to get up every now and then, get some exercise in, some walking or something to take you away from it, and so you can come back to it. One thing I'm doing differently is not also with our walk and talk, which give us time to exercise, reflect, and talk to each other about how we're doing so far, is I have like a little boogie board under my desk. And so I can rock my legs back and forth and do little exercise while I'm also sitting at my desk. And in my watch, it also tells me when to get up and move around. So I think that helped me a lot this year too. So I'm trying different things to get me motivated and stay on track.
I want a boogie board. That is very true, right? The physical movement is very helpful. So I'm all for that. What about you, Judy Ann? Reflections, thoughts?
Um, I totally support and love that you mentioned moving and getting up and just making sure you have all the sides of you that you need, because I think you can burn out really easily, which I think you sort of referenced, Liz. Um, and so just finding either other stories to work on when you feel like I can't do I can't work on this anymore. You're kind of getting sick of it or something, or you make sure you take care of your physical self as well. Um, and yeah, so I would just agree with everything you both have said.
Absolutely. And thank you, ladies, both for your feedback and your insight on your experiences. And, listener, I hope you see how, like, we all had very different experiences both times that we went through NaNoWriMo. But it's still enjoyable. It's still an opportunity. Again, even the different tools that they offer you, many of which are free for the month of November, and some are free in the month of October. So you can really get to see, will this help you? Is this something you're interested in? And even if you don't get to the 50,000 words, there are many tools that still give you a discount. So it is it's a valuable opportunity to get to know yourself as a person, as a writer, and to just have some fun. And again, you get to have these great people that have went through this experience with you, and it definitely will draw you closer together, because it's just something about when you can just be like, oh my God, I just didn't feel like writing today, but I know I have to. And someone's like, yep, I'm right there with you. Or you're in that murky middle and someone's like, hey, why don't you try this? And you really have the support of people that really just want you to succeed, including us here on the eReads podcast. And so I hope this was helpful for you. This is the season finale episode. So I'll be taking a little bit of break and creating some more content and completing some stories. So hopefully next year I can put out something, which was my goal, is to have like a full product to put out. So I'll be hibernating a little bit, but if you want some content, please follow me on lizwillardwrites.com and on my social platforms, using the link in the episode notes. And as always, I'm going to ask, do y'all have a prompt to leave us with? So folks, I always ask for a prompt so that way, you can be creative, whether that's in writing, whether that's in cooking, whatever your creative expression is, taking this prompt and being able to do that. So, ladies, does anyone have a prompt? It could be a word or a phrase. Go ahead, Bet.
Get in here. You have work to do.
Get in here. You have work. I'm writing it down. To do. Very cool. So listeners, listen, if you want to hear what I do with this prompt, you have to stay to the end of the episode. Sorry, Clubhouse, you'll have to wait a little bit to see what I do. But follow the eReads podcast on your podcast listening platforms and stay tuned to see what I do with this prompt. Ladies, this has been wonderful. I'm going to close down the room, and Vet, I'll see you probably at 1 to jump onto our writing room. Get in here. You have work to do, Big Mama screamed at me from the porch steps. The sweat poured from my neck in the summer Georgia heat, but I refused to sit down when there was a game of ball happening. I heard the crash of rubber on pavement and had to stop my chores to see who was on the court. There was a boy down the street with some high tops and a jersey with the number 14 on it. I read the letters, WHH, and couldn't figure out what they stood for. So I told myself I'd go down to the court and find out. I watched for a while as the ball bounced from the back of the board into the net. That's Miss Margaret's hoop, I said. She don't like no one messing with her hoop if they ain't from the neighborhood. He threw another shot that made it through the net. I know, that's my grandma. That's your grandma? I asked, surprised. I never seen any family visit. Many of the folks on this block ain't got relatives. Yeah, I'm here visiting for the summer, he said, throwing the ball again. This time it caught the edge of the rim and bounced over to my feet. I took it in my hands and rolled it between my fingers. The boy with the WHH jersey approached with open arms. I bounced it back and asked, You got some skill. Where you play? The boy went back to shooting hoops. West Hollywood High. WHH, my mind said. Cool, I mumbled, watching as the ball went swoosh. The ball bounced back to the boy, who turned to me and asked, You want to play? I always wanted to play, to feel the pressure of the ball in my hands and engage in the tactile game of physical chess. I smiled and raised my hands, catching the ball as he passed it to me. We passed it back and forth for what I thought was only a few minutes. But when I got back to my big mama and the belt she kept on the counter, I realized I had been outside for more than half the day.